Please be aware, in this podcast series we talk about all areas of safeguarding, which some people may find upsetting. So please make sure you're okay listening to today's topic. Be mindful of those around you, such as children, that you might not want to listen in. Hi, I'm SSS Safeguarding Director Sam Preston.
And I'm former head teacher and content author Sara Spinks.
Today we are talking about the upcoming school budget for 2025 through to 26, which has, just at the time of recording, is just been confirmed by Government Office. So schools have had a lot of uncertainty lately, and now finally we have some clarity. But there are still plenty of questions, I think it'd be fair to say. Schools, they've been planning in the dark, really, with no clear idea of their funding for quite some time. And we know that there's an extra 2.3 billion in core funding, which brings per pupil spending up to around, is it just over 8,000, it's about £8,100. And that's an increase, but there are pressures that could eat up a lot of that funding. And as always, there are some safeguarding concerns connected with these budget constraints.
Absolutely. So let's sort of break it down.
Yeah.
So one big factor in the budget is the cost of staffing. So the government has allocated part of this funding to cover the 5.5% pay rise for teachers, which is essential, not only to ensure good teaching quality, but also from a safeguarding perspective. Retaining experienced staff is crucial, really, for creating that safe, stable school environment.
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. And consistency in staffing is key for safeguarding. It really is. Teachers and support staff building those trusting relationships with their pupils over time, which helps identify and address issues early. That's how we address them early. So when schools lose staff due to funding gaps, it really disrupts that continuity. Teachers leave, students lose familiar faces that they rely on.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. Schools will need about £450 million of that new funding just to cover the full costs of teacher pay for the whole year.
Gosh.
After high needs and teacher pay, the remaining increase in funding, about 800 to 900 million, has to stretch across all the other school costs, including facilities, resources, and additional support for vulnerable students.
Which leads us to what we call high needs funding. The government's promised £1 billion rise in funding for special educational needs and disabilities and alternative provision. But it may still not be enough. I can tell you that's not going to be enough. I don't think it would be enough just for SEND alone, never mind that. I like the way it's, they tag on and alternative provision, which is massive in the UK.
Massive.
So the number of pupils needing AHCPs, that's Education, Health and Care Plan, that's been growing. Yeah. And it's a huge, as you know, Sarah, it's a huge part of the funding demand. It really is.
Yeah.
So the high needs budget alone accounted for almost half of the total increase in school funding from 2015 to 2024. That just gives you a picture.
Absolutely. I was only talking to the head teacher who took over from me at my last school, who said that in reception alone, they have got 6 children with EHCPs now, and that's incredible. So, this increase is more of an attempt to catch up, really, with existing needs rather than being proactive. Yeah. If schools can't meet the needs of students requiring special education or alternative provisions, then safeguarding risks rise. We know that. Students with special educational needs might not get the necessary support to help them succeed in school, making them even more vulnerable. So it's a real concern.
And what's so worrying about that is, as a group, we know children with special educational needs and disabilities are at higher risk from a safeguarding perspective anyway. For many reasons. And we've talked about, I won't go into all of that, the reasons why. We've talked about that before in previous podcasts, and we've talked about that in our articles. So it's making an already vulnerable group more vulnerable.
More vulnerable, definitely.
So schools face so much pressure to balance these budget limitations, and a lack of adequate support really can mean safeguarding risks aren't going to be flagged up as quickly or as effectively.
Yeah.
And if budgets are stretched, some schools might struggle to provide training for staff on safeguarding issues or to maintain those dedicated safeguarding roles.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Another safeguarding angle here, it relates to that physical safety. The Chancellor has increased spending on school buildings with a capital budget of 6.7 billion for the 25-26 year. Part of this is earmarked for maintenance, bringing it up to 2.1 billion pounds. That sounds good, but it's still less than what was available between 2020 and 2022. School buildings need to be safe environments, but we know many schools are in absolutely urgent need of repairs.
Exactly. And it's not just about having lovely, comfortable spaces. It's issues. I mean, in our last podcast, we were talking about the dangers of asbestos and how they've been heightened because of school buildings deteriorating.
Yeah.
It's really important issues like that. It's issues like broken heating systems, poor ventilation, unsafe playgrounds. All of these things directly impact on pupil safety and adults' safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
When schools don't have the capital for essential maintenance, safeguarding also takes a hit.
So I suppose we need to ask, where does that leave us? Schools are getting a funding increase, but with so many demands, it may not feel like a huge difference in the day-to-day. High needs, staff pay, building maintenance, they're all essential, but they'll quickly consume most of that budget. And schools are still in a position where they'll need to make those really tough choices.
Yeah, and we know that these tough choices can affect how well schools can safeguard the adults working there and the children. So it'll be important for schools to advocate for additional resources and continue prioritising as they do. I mean, I can honestly hold my hand on heart and say, I've worked with, so many head teachers over the years, and I regularly speak to head teachers using the SSS learning system. They have pupil and adult safety at the heart of everything they do, and they do prioritise it. But without more clarity on future funding, the next few years, won't be decided until 2025. It's so hard for schools to plan long term.
Yeah, it's a real balancing act, Sam. Schools are doing everything they can to provide that safe and supportive environment for their pupils and their staff, as you've said. But they need more reliable, consistent funding to keep up with both the educational and the safeguarding demands. Let's hope that as we get into the 26-27, we see that stronger commitment, to support these priorities.
Yeah, well said. And I think, just as a kind of final acknowledgement, really, for want of a better phrase, if you're a school leader and you're listening, you're not alone. There's many in similar roles that are facing the same challenges, and it is about having a joined up voice and being proactive through unions, and that's the only way that this is going to really be kept on government's radar.